welcome to this week's Yucky Mommy podcast. I'm Holly.
And I'm Jess, and we are on a journey through messy, chaotic, wonderfully imperfect world of motherhood. Each week, we delve into the nitty-gritty of parenting, sharing our trials, and hilarious mishaps along the way. But we're not just here for the girl chat, we're here to learn and grow both as moms and individuals. That's why we're thrilled to introduce our special guest for this episode, Dr. Kristin Edwards, a seasoned child psychologist hailing from our beautiful city of Tampa, Florida.
Our moms are yucky.
Let me just throw in there that Kristin and I go way back to our college sorority days, far before becoming who we are today. Dr. Edwards brings a wealth of expertise and insight to her podcast, drawing from her years of experience working with families to navigate through challenges of raising happy, healthy kids. From temper tantrums to bedtime battles, Dr. Edwards has seen it all and offers practical advice rooted in both science and compassion. So grab your coffee, buckle up, and get ready to dive into the world of parenting with us and our special guest, Dr. Kristin Edwards. And hey, don't worry if your journey as a parent feels a bit yucky sometimes. We're all in this together.
Woo!
That is like,
Yay.
okay, that was help with ChatGPT, but I fed it.
You are so good at
Well, Xavier and I have become experts at
Yeah.
ChatGPT, and it's like the more info that you feed it, like I gave it its prompt, I gave it your website, I gave it things, and I like put like our sorority days, like all of that in there. So it does that, but I've been like learning how to use it because AI is like this revolution that's coming, which that can be a whole nother conversation with you because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that as a psychologist, like AI is becoming a real thing. Like I've heard students and kids have
Right.
relationships now with like AI people online, but let's not go there because that could be a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
But
My
this is
husband's
wild, yeah.
really into that
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been dabbling with it. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great for these types of situations and
It's
making
quick.
sure, it's quick and easy and it's at your fingertips. But I cannot believe that we're here. So like I said, Kristin and I go way back, and now we're on this journey of motherhood myself, and she's really kind of in the world of helping moms and teens and adolescents and children really navigate through not just life stresses, but life changes and all the things that come with life in general. So we have questions that we're going to ask. We're going to dive into some really big topics that, come into motherhood and in raising good human beings, but then also diving into some yucky mommy moments that have been shared with us and how, Kristin would help handle these things. So go ahead, do it.
Well, I was just kind of wondering how long you've been a child psychologist and what interested you in this field. What kind of got you involved? And if you could kind of tell us, what is the difference between a therapist and a child psychologist, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, first, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream here. But so I became a licensed psychologist in 2021. I graduated with my PhD in school psychology in 2019. So before that, I was a teacher. And that's kind of how I got started. I love working with kids, but I really felt like I wasn't able to, I had parents asking me, when my child's not sleeping or they have all these behavior issues. And I felt like as a teacher, there was so much that I knew, a little bit enough to try and help, but not enough to actually do anything to help. Mm-hmm. And just the politics of teaching and all the stuff in that. I loved it and I still miss it, but the progression to school psychology, which led me to do more private practice and work with just families, was really the best path and what I really wanted to do and can help people.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got started there.
Okay.
So as a psychologist, there's a lot of overlap for sure.
Uh-huh.
But as a psychologist, I do a lot of evaluations, which therapists can also do the same here. So it's really down to training in psychology, child psychology, was my focus, school psychology. And so then I'm also doing therapy, parent training, different types of treatments, where a therapist is going to be more focused on therapy. And also there's a lot of overlap in just depending on what kind of training, they might be doing evaluations and assessments. They might be doing the same kinds of therapy. It's just the way that whatever they went to school for. So it's mental health counseling, or there's marriage and family therapy. So
do you kind of cover all or more of that?
Not necessarily even, so like the marriage and family,
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of couples, like I don't do couples
Okay.
counseling because I don't have the training in that.
Okay.
So it really is like what you want to do with that. You can kind of trace back, like that's your training, your degree.
Right.
Or once you're licensed, we're doing a lot of the same things if you have that training for it.
Got it.
I was just wondering because like you hear a lot of parents be like, oh, I'm taking my child to like therapy. But like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we take them to like a specific
Right.
psychologist?
Right.
You know what I
It
mean?
very well
Yeah.
could be, right? I mean, I guess
Yeah.
you guys just fall into this bucket.
You kind of want to, yeah. You want to look at a therapist or a psychologist. You just want someone that is knowledgeable in that area.
Yeah, right.
So do you have a practice that people come to you for?
Mhm.
Or do they come on like a weekly basis or like a monthly or how do you, like just depends on
Yeah.
like what they need?
Yeah, it depends. Usually weekly. Sometimes it's a little longer.
Mhm.
There's more intensive types of therapy, and that'd be like twice a week, or if you need more than that, and that's kind of, I'm referring out to other clinics that do that, but it's usually weekly.
Yeah.
And I work a lot with parents, which we'll kind of like get into.
Oh
but
yeah, okay.
More so than the child. So the child's my patient, but I'm working with family members,
Parent
To
teachers.
help. Yeah. It's crazy because, you know, I saw your career evolve and like COVID really kind of
Mhm.
helped you understand that like therapy doesn't necessarily have to be in person anymore. So like your lifestyle now is like enhanced and better because now you can do, so a lot of these therapies still virtual, or are you meeting in person?
I do evaluations in person
Okay.
still. So like ADHD, autism, learning disorder
Mhm.
evaluations in
Mhm.
person. Some therapy in person, but
Okay.
parents have, since COVID, have been like, they just prefer virtual.
Right.
You know, I'll meet with them in the middle of the day or
Right.
whenever
That's
they can
great.
find time.
Yep.
And they don't have to worry about childcare. Like, so there's a lot of people that prefer
Of
virtual, so I've kept it that. And
Yeah.
it's easier
For
you know,
you.
for me too.
Yeah.
I can fit in more clients, it
Yeah.
seems like.
Better time management that
Yeah.
way. For sure. No, I think I remember when this like transition was happening and you were excited about being able to do that
Yeah.
online and transition that way. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we're gonna go right now straight into a topic that you know, we feel is, it's funny because I asked Kristin kind of what we should talk about, and this was something that she mentioned, and it's the when I started to think about it and really deal with things. It's funny because I'm looking at Zeke right now, and I feel like this may be something that Zeke deals with a little bit. And I've had this discussion with you, and I was like, is it OCD or like what is it? So really, how to deal with children who struggle with anxiety, and how can we as parents help navigate and ease any anxiety to our children that they may struggle with at a young age? And this could be toddlers to teenagers. So maybe walk us through, not like diagnosing or looking at behaviors and how we deal with that kind of in our kids. And, you know, obviously we have more of the, you know, the range. Obviously Zuri's younger, but like 4 to 7, you know, range
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like toddlers, children.
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. So like in that age range, we're going to see anxiety regardless, right? So it's anxiety disorders, but
Right.
just like some of that separation anxiety.
Right.
It's normal to experience anxiety at that age, at any age, really. So I see a lot of that. First, you know, going to anxiety is a normal human emotion. So what we tend to do as parents, and especially in this age and the younger they get, is try to help them. Like
Right.
they're experiencing a big emotion and we want to help them.
Right.
And what that is like a good reason we need to do that.
Right.
If it's instinct, right? Like a baby's crying, we're like naturally hardwired to go respond.
Right.
When a child's experiencing anxiety, which is not a actual real threat, it
Right.
is
Of
this
course.
this perceived,
Right.
I don't want to go do something. I don't want to walk into a classroom or
Right.
go walk out to the baseball field on my own or go to bed by myself.
Right.
We're hardwired to do that same thing. We try and comfort them or try and make them
Right.
feel better.
Right.
And that's instinct, but that is actually reinforcing anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a big piece that when I'm talking to parents about anxiety and anxiety disorders,
Right.
is even, you know, just in the most simple form of it, parents are not the cause of anxiety, but
Right.
there's a lot that we can do to reinforce the anxiety or help get them more independent and not feeling that so much.
Okay. Right.
So that's kind of like this first layer of things, is
Right.
like really thinking about that in that sense, where the next thing we do is accommodate anxiety.
Okay.
So if, like you were saying, what does Zeke
So
tend to do?
Zeke is kind of like, everything has to be like in order. And if he gets something in his mind, it has to happen. And if it's like it has to happen now. And if it's not, he's fixated, and it's like anxiousness of like, when is it going to happen? Or like my dad, it's just, this is something simple. Like my parents are on the way here, right? And every time that my parents come in, my dad opens the door and goes, "Cookie poos," like something so random. But he is anticipating that because he is like, doesn't want to be startled by him walking in. So for 3 hours, he is like, "Where's Ada?
Oh, wow.
When is he coming in?" Because he's like worried that he's going to be scared when he walks in and says, "Hey, Cookie." And it's not like a scary thing, but he's like anticipating and getting anxious about that moment.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's not like separation anxiety. He'll go do whatever. He'll go talk to the wall. But like, it's just that anticipation of it. So you're like, okay. So I tell him like, he's 30 minutes away. Don't worry. I'll give you the warning when he's almost here. But like, it's just like an anxiousness, and he just like keeps harping on it and keeps harping on it.
I feel like that's normal, right?
I mean, that's what she said. Most of it is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, we'll take something that is normal. It can get to a point, like, so an anxiety feeling versus anxiety disorder is, it really comes down to how much is it interfering with
their daily life,
your functioning.
Yeah.
So how much, like, as a parent, is there really no boundary where I am having to modify a lot of things that I'm doing? The whole family
right? All your other kids and everything.
I might only do it for this one child, but I don't do it for any of their siblings.
Right.
And that's where, even then, we accommodate. It's very natural to do that.
Of course.
And that's, like, what'd you say? Did your dad says something when he walks in?
Yeah, like my dad would just be like, "Cookie poo." It's just like so random. Like he opens the door and he says this thing, but like he doesn't want to be scared by it. Yeah, like he gets excited. Like it's just this thing, and he gets fixated on it. Or like when he was younger, it's gone now. Like if I flushed a toilet when he went pee, it was like he is supposed to do that, and he gets like stressed out. Like everything is like. And then like when we switched the routine, we used to do dinner time then bath time, and now we do bath time before dinner. Like for the first like 2 weeks, it was like, you just messed up my routine, and it was like he would fight the battle of like he's just like control. Where I have the opposite kid who could care less about anything, like scare me, do whatever you need me to do, But like, sometimes those behaviors, like, it's just like this anxiousness. And then I tell him, he's an hour away. And then like 5 minutes later, how long has it been? I was like, 55 minutes. And then it's like, everyone's getting annoyed because he's like this. And I'm like, then I'm getting annoyed. And then the other kids I'm being annoyed at the other kids. It's like you said, it's like a disturbance. But like, that is just an anxious moment, not a disorder.
Right. And that is like very natural for it to play out like that.
Right.
Because we tend to give statements that are either protective, so it might be like, oh, he can't handle the stress, and so I need to be there to comfort him. Or so that's kind of protective in that way, or demanding, where it might be like, it's fine, sit down.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Or like, it's the first day of school, your teacher is going to be great, just get inside. This is not that big of a deal. You did it last year.
Right.
And we do that because, like, one, we have other things to do. Like, so we might be pressed for time.
Yeah.
How we're regulating our own emotions in that moment, if it's whatever else is going on. And, but we're not able to to be as intentional or like mindful.
Right.
Where we want, there's like this sweet spot of like supportive statements, which it kind of combines those two.
Right.
We don't want to be overly protective because that is what's reinforcing the anxiety. And same with demanding, like it's dismissive.
It's dismissive, yeah.
I was just going to say that.
It
seems very dismissive and like, you've done, like, it's
you're
fine, you're good.
Yeah. Which that can happen, we'll say things, it's not the worst thing in the world to say that to your kid, because it's going to come out, because it's going to be times that
100%, you're
like,
overstimulated, you're just done.
Right. I don't have time.
Right.
But the idea is to be more mindful of how I'm responding to the anxiety.
Right.
And that's really where parents like hold the key to treating anxiety disorders even, but even just this like day-to-day anxiety.
What is a common cause of anxiety besides like is it separate, like in this age, that sweet spot of like 3 to 8? Is it separation? Is it I feel like we have a culture, and it's funny, we were talking about like screenagers now, and you've even told me this. I always bring this up, how like you had some kids when you first started doing your therapy that didn't even want to go to Target because they didn't even want to speak to the cashier at Publix or at Target. They didn't even want to have the interaction of like giving them their card because they were scared to have that interaction. What are common, I guess, to think like, all right, this is just like an anxious moment versus like this is an actual disorder. Like, how do we decipher? It's like obviously repetitiveness, but
it's that, is it interfering? Like, can you still do your day-to-day activities at school? Are they able to function? Like, it comes up a lot that teens don't want to go in like to the store, so they're not getting a job because they're afraid to apply. So it's like limiting, as an adult, it's limiting your quality of life. Like, I want to go do something, like even taking this, like
Right.
being on a podcast, like
Right,
there's
for
normal
sure.
emotions that are going to come with
Of course.
that. So I can feel nervous about something, but still pursue it
It's not
because I want to
debilitating.
do it.
Right,
It'd be
right.
of value for me to still do it. It's
Got
not
it.
going to hold me back.
Right.
Where anxiety disorders is that emotion, we really fuse with those thoughts of like, I am not going to be able to tolerate that emotion. Just the
Right.
thought of feeling like
Right.
that is making me run the other direction.
Right.
So it's really when it's problematic is when it's interfering with someone's life. They're not able to do something.
Do you see that more with teenagers as they get older? Like, are there things that you can kind of see as like young children that they are either going to grow out of, or is there things that we could do so they don't have that as teenagers? You know what I mean? Like maybe we see it in children, and it seems normal, right? And then we like address it, but like as they get older, those kids that actually have those like debilitating moments, does it stem from something?
Right.
in
That's another thing
childhood?
too. Right.
Right, yeah. So there's a lot of factors for like the cause or like what
Right,
is, and,
right.
and genetics is a big
I was going to
piece
say, is
here.
that a part of it? Okay.
Environment is like, so things that we experience. If you
Okay.
think of like, if you were in a car accident, it's
Right.
normal to be a little hesitant and like
course.
have these big emotions connected to this experience.
And that wouldn't be a disorder, right? That would be
Right. It's normal. Yeah, it could
sure.
turn into that. Like
Of
maybe I
course.
never drive again because
right.
of it.
Of course.
But I think how we respond to that anxiety is huge because we can easily reinforce, we can inadvertently reinforce anxiety. And so when they're teens, we want them to learn, and this is kind of funny because I work with adults and college students too that come into therapy of like, I'm super anxious. I don't want to be anxious anymore. It's like interfering with my life. So how do I just cut this feeling out?
Right.
And we have to have this conversation of like, we're wired to feel anxiety. So
Of course.
we can't get rid of that feeling. It's not, how do I stop feeling this? How do I tolerate this better? So we really want kids to learn the same. Like
Coping.
we want to, things that we say can teach them, I can withstand this feeling. I don't have to like, when I get this like sudden feeling, I don't have to immediately like stop and run away or that it's that fight or flight response.
Right.
We want that response in appropriate situations, but we also want to be like, wait a minute, I have this feeling and I'm still going to go walk into my classroom.
Right.
It's normal to feel like this when I walk into the classroom.
Yeah, because I'm not really someone who's ever dealt with anxiety. I don't think I've ever dealt with that type of feeling of like something. I worry. I'm a worrywart, but I don't think that that's like maybe it is a form of anxiety, just a little bit different. Like I worry about my kids' safety, like they're jumping on the trampoline. Like Holly knows, like I'm a worrywart parent. Like when they're in the pool, I'm like, someone's gonna get hurt. Like where she's a little bit more like she kind of calms me down, like they're fine, or like she's like, Jess, don't look right now.
Yeah.
But those are like not like, so I don't. So that's when, and Xavier's not anxious either. So like both of us are not very. So we're dealing with. I have to like remind Xavier like when Zeke's like just kind of, in these situations of like OCD or like wanting these things, and if things are like not in that order, he gets like. But he's gotten better, I can say, with age, and like it's not a disturbance at school. It's always like when he's here, when he's comfortable, and when he knows that he can kind of like control.
Yeah.
He's my most demanding
child.
but-
Well, see, that's what he's learning is like, I can reduce this feeling by modifying the environment.
Right, for sure.
And that's great to be able to know how to do that. But kids get really good at doing that.
Yeah.
And then it's when we're over accommodating that's their way of coping.
So
and they're not learning how to withstand it.
So with Zeke, when his grandpa's coming, should she just like not tell him?
And that's
Like-
I think sometimes too it's like a mix of like excitement and
Right.
anticipation, but then it becomes anxious because he just wants to
Like,
know, and it's
yeah.
like he's fixated and he just
Yeah.
wants to know because he knows as soon as that door opens he might get scared,
Yeah.
So like sometimes I don't tell him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Like Korea, we're going to Korea. I don't know if you knew this, but we're going to Korea, and like we like determine whether like we tell our kids things, like if there's a birthday party, like do you tell them or do you
don't,
not tell them?
Because it's ahead of time.
Right, and then it's just like every day, and those are
Yeah.
like again not anxious, debilitating feelings. It's just like partially exciting because I feel like anxiety can sometimes be an excited
emotion.
feel. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily always have to be a negative connotation. Is that right? Like.
Right, like so, and anxiety presents in kids as it can be irritability or hyperactivity, like you can just see. But yeah, so like to what you're saying of do I tell them ahead of time? That is an accommodation. But it's not that we don't
Got
want to
it.
do this at all.
Got it.
But it's going to make that situation easier because it reduces the anxiety.
Got it.
And that's what I mean by like, we have to do
line,
this
yeah.
sometimes. There's
Yeah, of
times
course.
that it's like, I'm just not going to say anything because
Right.
there's no
Oh,
way
yeah.
I can handle it. Like, things going on this week.
Yeah.
But to think about like, is this something where we want to expose them to the stimulus, which is the
Right.
thing that's making them anxious,
Yeah.
or giving them whatever, any big emotion.
Right.
If we know it's like, we know it's safe, and
Of course.
I'm sure like trying to communicate like it's gonna be fine, or
Right.
that doesn't work even with
Oh.
adults really. It
No, for
usually
sure.
makes us like really dig our heels in, or like kids.
Yeah, for sure. It's fine. It's like something that
No,
makes
it's not
me
gonna be
irk.
fine.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
makes me annoyed, you know? So I guess like as parents, when we notice some of these behaviors, or what do you think in terms of, and it's kind of like what Holly just said, like, do you see like anxious adults or like 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, were they anxious, like if you speak to the parent, were they the same way when they were younger?
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless they had some kind of
Big
treatment,
moment.
like intervene, yeah,
Right.
or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
trauma, maybe.
Yeah, like a trauma, a
usually
big moment.
see-
Okay.
Yeah, and also too, parents of or kids with anxiety often have parents
Parents with-
that are
yeah, sure.
anxious,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it isn't this like parents are causing it, but there's so much of, we're social and
course.
relational beings, so much of anxiety. And even if you think about like our nervous system, like as an infant, our ability to cry is signaling to a parent, I need
need
you
something,
to help
right.
me with something.
Right.
And that is like, we're hardwired for that.
Got it.
So to then expect, like as you get older, you just need to do this on your own. That's really what we're teaching kids, is how to be independent, but know that this is a normal feeling, and
Right.
this is going to come along with you.
Yeah.
Where it's just not natural for us to do that, though. The natural thing is to say like, wow, you're feeling like so overwhelmed, let me make this easier.
Yeah, of course.
Or I don't have time and
Yeah,
boot you out.
there's two
Yeah.
windows. Yeah.
I guess I have two things, but kind of because we're talking about adults in a way. Do moms ever come to you with anxiety, like postpartum?
Yeah.
Do you deal
Yeah.
with a lot of people? Because I think that a lot of new moms have anxiety or get anxiety because they have this being that they have to take care of, and they're just like
Yeah.
freaking out. Like that was me. Like
Yeah.
I think I always had somewhat or something of anxiety, but it wasn't debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
But once I
Yeah.
had kids, like I was like psychotic. I literally would wake up. I would wake up in the middle of the night, like breathing really hard, like, oh my gosh, like my baby's dying, like there's
course.
something wrong with my baby. Like I was freaking out because I
Yeah.
thought like there was always something, like something could happen, like they could roll over and they could die, like
Right. You think in the worst.
like very intrusive thoughts.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And so, what do you say to parents that, like, new moms? Because I actually was just talking to one yesterday. Her baby is, like, I think 8 weeks old, and she said she just has so much anxiety about leaving her baby with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's, like, someone that she doesn't fully trust or doesn't really know that well, but she wants to be able to,
Go get her nails done or
yes,
something. Yeah.
and have a babysitter or a nanny or
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
and kind of interview people. But, like, what do you say to moms like that, like new moms?
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like that's a whole.
Thing.
I mean, people specialize in that, in maternal mental health
Yes.
alone, because it is so. It is normal. Like so, you may have had some anxiety, or just like this. We could say like a normal amount of that feeling before, but now like it seems like the stakes are higher.
Yeah,
and,
of course. The human's here.
And yeah,
Staring
right.
at
So
me.
you hear of like postpartum depression a lot, the baby blues, but postpartum anxiety is definitely relevant and is
Yeah.
huge.
I don't think it's been talked about as much until probably COVID.
Yeah.
I don't
right,
think like
right.
people actually said like
Because the world
postpartum
stopped.
anxiety, postpartum depression was like a huge thing. We all knew
Right.
about it, but like PPA, no one really talked about.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I have another question. Sorry. So my husband thinks that like arguing in front of your kids is like good. It's okay. I mean, obviously, I hate it. Like, I would rather just like,
Just
hey,
give the silent
like,
treatment.
yeah. Like,
It's
I
so
honestly
funny
would be
that you
like,
say
hey,
this.
like, come, like, let's talk about this, like, away from the kids. Like, if you want to argue, like, if you want
It's
to,
so funny that
whatever
you say
you
this.
want to talk about, like, so I'm curious, like, what do you
Yeah.
think about that? Because I think that it induces anxiety in my children.
No,
and
it's funny
I
that
think,
you say that because I had a situation
yeah.
where Xavier picked up the phone, or Xavier, we were headed, Xavier and I took 2 cars to baseball practice. Xavier was in the front with Xander, and I had Zeke in my car. And I called him and I was like, hey, why don't we just get Twisty Treat, but why don't we eat there? He's like, no, I don't want to eat there. And I was like, but why can't we just eat there? And it was kind of like a little like, and I got hung up. And Zeke said to me, why do you guys always have to be yelling at each other? And you know when he asked me? And
Yeah, my kids say that
he
too.
He literally goes, because he had a question about friends who the dad and the mom don't live together. It was actually about my brother and his ex-wife, and he asked me because my brother's new wife is not Easton's mom. So like we had that discussion like a couple of days ago. So he asked me, and he said Easton's mom, and I said, you know, sometimes like I have to have a discussion with a 5-year-old. Sometimes marriages don't last. People argue. So he said, why do you guys live together if you argue? He literally said that. Because we had just talked about, so this is...
Okay, yeah.
My son's done the same.
It's literally, we were talking about, like, why can't we eat Twisty Treat? Like, it literally wasn't even really an argument, but they listened to everything. So I'm glad that you asked that.
But I'm wondering about that type of argument.
Right.
But I'm also wondering about maybe, like, the argument is not ending. Like, we're not, like, resolving it in that moment. So, like, he says that as long as the kids see us, like, make up.
Yes. I agree with
that.
Nick.
It's fine.
I agree with Nick. Zeke is more on your side.
But I'm just kind of like, why? Like, what's the point? Like, why can't we just talk about this some other time? Like,
Xavier
they don't
has the
need
same
to
sentiment
see
as you.
us. It depends on the argument. Like, if it's something like that, I feel like that's normal. That's fine. But do you think when there is a lot of, like, disagreeing or arguments or, like, one parent is gone more than the other, do you think that causes anxiety in children?
Wait, that's
the argument. Sorry.
Oh, the
argument.
Okay.
Well, I guess both. What do you think about, you know, having combative arguments in front of your kids? Do you think that can attribute to, like, now Zeke thinking that Xavier's going to move out because we talked about Twisty Treat?
Right,
or, you know, like just anxiety.
Yeah, just like, is that like anxiety in that moment?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's causing anxiety for the future when they get in a relationship? Just like things like that.
Right.
Like, what do you think about that?
So in this, the answer is like this yes and no in all of this stuff here, because it matters like the situation and the like just the context of the argument and all of that. But it's really similar actually to what we're saying is that like emotions are normal, which means disagreements are normal, and our kids are gonna see us have emotions. Yeah. And we want that because we're also models. That's how they're primarily learning how to interact with other people the way that we interact with other people. Even, you know, teens are doing that.
Of course.
But definitely the younger that they are. So it's like, yes, we don't want to hide or make it seem like, and that's not the intention, but that's what inadvertently happens.
Yeah, of course.
Is that fighting is not really
a thing. Like,
so if you're angry, you should do what you can to like get rid of that emotion or deal with it in private, or in some situations that's appropriate, you know, but like definitely for things that are like age appropriate or like Twisty Treat kind of things, like some people have disagreements of
should we eat there or should we not?
And that's okay. You're teaching, you know, and what I tell parents too is that you're modeling so much. So even if like you're going into an argument or where you've had this conversation ahead of time with your spouse of, we're going to be mindful that we're modeling something here. You can kind of talk through of like, man, like when the phone clicks, like, man, mom is really upset. I'm like really frustrated that daddy didn't want to go here. Sometimes it's hard to deal with that, but this is a really big feeling in me right now. It's like kind of making me have like a lot of energy, but like I know I can get through this feeling, and
modeling
it's
that
not personal like that.
Right. When you're like, why do you live together? Right.
And that's the piece that it's like good to model this full process for kids. So I think when it might not happen, we're like planning an argument for the sake of doing that, and it gets to a point that you're like things that we maybe wouldn't want our kids to see, like slamming doors or throwing things.
Of course.
When it gets to that point, I think that is going to happen. Like we might aim to not do that, but we have emotions,
of course, in the moment.
So when that does happen, I think coming back of, even if it's not seeing like the resolution, but wow, mommy just had a really big emotion right now, and it made me want to like slam the door, and that was like such a big feeling, and you're kind of like, that is really what happened. It's like this, we have emotion, so we're just showing that it's normal to have this emotion, but we can also like, well, let me pause for a second and think about what I want to do, instead of impulsively reacting an emotion.
Yeah.
I know it's a fine
That's
line.
why it's kind of this like yes and no.
I know.
You know, of course, like violent. I mean, slamming
Of
doors
course,
is like
of course.
that's
I feel like that's
Can
really
happen.
it can happen,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's very scary for kids.
For sure.
Or it's like you're getting in the car, you're going to the beach, and the parent we start fighting.
No, you're trying to get
We're
everyone
like,
out of the house.
house.
Or you're like trying to like
Yeah,
do a
it's
photo
chaos.
shoot. You're just trying, and like I
for
start
sure.
screaming.
Like if this picture could talk, you would hear like sit down, shut up,
Yes.
don't touch your brother, dig it left.
but
give
it's
you a
like,
lollipop.
are
It's
we like,
Right.
are we creating children
Right.
that are like gonna have so much anxiety, or like
Well, I
do those like
Well, I think I've told you this
I
too.
see.
Like, I come from parents who I can literally tell my mom, turn left, and she's not listening. I'm like, turn left! I'm like screaming, but we're just communicating. And Xavier comes from a very different household where they actually like, can you turn left? Can you turn left? Like, that
They're
would just
so nice.
never happen
Right.
in my house. So it's funny because, like, Xavier's always like, well, they yell because you yell.
that's what
Yeah.
Nick
That's,
says.
that's how I could literally just be like, Mom, you need to turn left. And I'm not really like, but they yell because that's just, and it's not
So-
the good
Right.
thing. It's not a good thing, but
Yeah.
I'm also like, I mean, that's just
Another
how
thing is,
communicate,
like,
because
It
I
may
don't
not
think
be problematic.
I don't
Right,
think
that
like,
is-
can you turn left, or like sweeping things under the rug and not talking about
Okay.
how you feel. I don't think that is right either, you know. So,
so
like,
Right.
I don't know. There's like this. We're
But when
trying to just
they're-
do the best we can.
when they're older though,
Yeah.
they're like, are you gonna be okay with them yelling at you like that?
I mean, I don't know.
That's my thing. Where I'm just kind of like,
I don't like doing it to my mom, but that's what I'm building. That's what Xavier says.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like even this morning, like my mom lives with me right now, and like I had a moment with my mom where I'm like, stop. Like I was really upset, and then I could feel and I could see
Bianca.
my son. It's usually my son.
Yeah.
Like, and he kind of feels, he's very empathetic. He
Yeah,
feels
that's
bad.
neat.
He
That's
thinks
neat.
that and then we get in the car, and then
Yep.
my daughter's like, picks up on attitude like very easily, and she's like, you didn't really speak kindly to your Grammy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, yes, because I was not very happy in that
Yeah, no,
moment.
that's
Like
the
I
thing.
don't
It's
know
so
what to
true.
say.
It's so true.
Yeah.
But
It's a
I don't
cycle,
I
and
don't want
that's
my
fine.
kids to grow up
But I feel
and
like
speak to me.
I know it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and we have that because I see things now in how conflict resolution happens with both of our families. And I know that Xavier's family, it wasn't wrong. It's different from, and we weren't wrong, but they do it differently than what they do. And I see now in Xavier's mid-30s, conflict resolution with issues with his family. Like, I can literally be like, Mom, you are so annoying. Stop. Like, I am the mom here, not you. Like, I have to have these conversations with my mom monthly. Like, I know you're here to help and I appreciate it, but I am the mother. Like, where that would never happen on the other
Right.
side
So
of the
what would they
family.
do on the other side?
Xavier would just let her do whatever she wants. It's just the way that
I
it
think
is.
the difference though is your mom knows, like, you're communicating
Yeah.
effectively. It
Right.
might look different, like you
I shouldn't-
saying it that way to
I know.
Xavier's mom would not get your message across. Like it would be taken the wrong
Of
way.
course.
So it's like that is it's still effective communication for you guys.
Right.
If your mom was like, I don't really like that you're being disrespectful. Like I find that
Yeah.
not okay the way that you're talking to me. It's something else.
Yeah, of course. No, my mom just
You
gives it
know?
back to me, and then an hour later, it's like, hey, so do you want to go to Marshall?
Right, it's
Or
like that
something.
was just-
You wanna go to
I think
way
that
they're
that's very
communicating.
common with like mother-daughter
Right,
relationships.
right. But I
Yeah.
sometimes then I feel guilty because like what Xavier
Same.
says, like we're building this, like we're modeling these behaviors. But again, I want to my kids that if there is a problem or if there is something that we need to talk about, that they can tell me how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't want my
Right,
kids to be
so-
35, but again, within reason. Like I know there's times that I have probably disrespected my mom. Like, I mean, we're all
Yeah.
humans here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like this fine line. It's like cyclical. It's like you're
it
trying
is.
to like.
But that's a big
Oh.
one too. Like, what do you say to parents when their children are not confiding in them? Like, how do you resolve that? Like, how they're too afraid to either bring it up because of however they parented or whatever it is. I growing up never wanted to tell my parents anything.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think I was just more ashamed or just maybe a little scared of what they would think. But I don't want my kids to be like that.
Right,
Like I want
right.
them to be able to come to me, and that's why I feel like through parenting I've worked on myself so much.
So both of your parents,
Yeah.
you didn't feel open with both, because I feel like
Yeah.
in most households there's one parent that, like I told my mom everything, but I didn't.
I mean, I
tell
guess
my
I
dad,
told
you know?
my mom more,
You're right.
But at the same time, I just didn't feel like I had that relationship where I felt so comfortable telling her everything.
Right.
So, like, what do you say? Do parents come to you and ask you stuff like
Especially
that? Like,
teens. Life is different now than when we were kids, too. Like, life is different. Kids have more things at their fingertips. Like, parents have to be
bullying
way
is at
more...
bullying is at an all-time high,
Yeah, so how
especially
do you-
behind a screen. Like, these kids, like, or people in general, like, they don't even have to, like, put their full name on there or a picture to be held accountable for the bullying.
Yes.
It could be...
Yeah, so I guess, how do you deal with that? Because we're living in a way different age. So, so, like, how do we make sure that... But there's also a fine line between being your parent's friend and being the parent.
That's a different subject.
But this is also comes into, like, your parent...
No,
I don't want my kids to... I mean, there's some things that... I don't know, maybe you shouldn't tell me. I don't know. What do you think?
Tell me.
Yeah.
What do you say to parents?
So you want your kids to be able to come to you if they really need something. Like there's when it's like this blurred line of like we're best friends, and so then they're sharing too much. Or you're like, you want them to be independent people, but come to you, and there has to be trust there. Obviously, but then part of building that trust is in how we're responding to when they're coming to us with some of these things.
Right.
So like I always use the example of as an adult, if someone was like my dog passed away, we would be like, I'm so sorry, like, oh, it's so sad. And we with kids, we were quick to problem solve. So like in that situation, an adult that was like, oh, there's a dog shop down the street. It's like so great. We'll just go get a new one.
Got it.
It's gonna be fine.
Yes.
Like there's tons of dogs on this planet, and we'll just get you another one, and everything will be great again. Like you're having a big feeling, but like we can solve that really easily.
Yeah.
That is like kind of what we're saying. Like that we send that message to kids, but on this like things that are not that big of a deal to us because they're not big of a deal, but to kids they're this really big important thing.
Right.
So like later in life, when we want kids to come to us of like, I have my boyfriend in high school is like having an issue. If the things that we came to our parents for, the way that those were responded to is going to impact how we're talking, how we're like bringing things up later.
Interesting.
So if I'm like very dismissive unintentionally, then that child is not going to look like, okay, I should have dealt with that, and I'm not going to bring this up ever again, kind of thing. Right. Not overnight, but over time. I know. So it kind of is, right? But only the thing that makes it like it is scary, but is that it's not. Is that if we can always be like acknowledging that emotion is normal, and so always accepting that I'm gonna have emotions, you're gonna have emotions through things, right? And so responding in this supportive way, I can validate the emotion, so it's not dismissive, but this is a big emotion, whether or not I think it's fitting for the situation, right? Or
whether I agree with you or not.
For it, you're having this response. And that's completely normal. Like you're afraid to walk into school for the first day, you're nervous about your new teacher. That's completely normal to feel like that. That's such a big feeling, and like validate the heck out of it. Right. But then when we do that and then provide these like reassurance statements of like everything is going to be fine, that's when it like really puts it in that dismissive category. Got it. Like, this is a big emotion, but it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to worry about it. So then what do you say? So you want to say, you want to convey confidence that they'll be able to get through this emotion. The first day of school is hard, and I'm really confident that you'll be able to withstand that feeling. You'll be able to get through the day despite having that feeling. You might have that feeling the entire day, and that's totally normal. Like as soon as we normalize that, we get more confident in doing something, because then kids are telling themselves, oh, this is actually like, it's normal to feel like this. Yeah. And we say things like, your teacher's so nice, like you met her at open house and your friends are nice. It suggests that the anxiety is like, I do need to listen to it. Like my teacher's nice, thank God, and I'll be able to go into class this year, but next year I do need to worry about it again. Just by reassuring, we kind of imply that like that fight or flight system going off right now is a good thing, when in those situations, it doesn't really, we need to just accept that, I'm going to have this emotion. It's okay. And it's okay to have it. Like, I can still walk into the classroom when I have this emotion.
So, like, validating that.
And then that's going to attribute to when they get older, whether they trust us or not.
And that will...
I failed the test, honey.
Yeah, I know, right?
I failed.
Well, you still got time. Who's that?
Udis.
Oh, I thought it was... It's like kids.
No, it's Udis.
Well, I guess
Okay.
we'll wrap it up with a Yucky Mommy moment that we got from somebody.
Yeah.
Jess?
Yeah, we finally got one.
Someone wrote in and was like, I think her son is a little bit older. I would say like preteen. And that, I think middle school is always really difficult. I always hear it's like the most difficult. And if I can remember back to that time, like for my sister, for example, it was a really hard time. So she's saying that her son is hanging out with kids that she doesn't really think are great influences. And like as parents and as adults, like we know that who you hang out with is who you become, right? We've kind of been molded into that. I think that we kind of know that lesson. But as children, I think that there's a fine line between like the
Learning
kid
the hard
figuring
way.
it out on their own
Right.
and you kind of like
Or stopping it.
guiding them, or it's like, hey, you can't hang out with those kids, or like not saying that, but like making it harder for you to hang out with those kids.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
what do you think is the right way to handle that kind of situation when your kids start hanging out with other kids that are, let's just say, swearing or
bad influence.
bad, just
The
bad
phone.
influences?
There's a lot of things now that we didn't have to deal with.
We're exposed to so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is another one of those like yes and no. Like there's it's just because it's it's a hard topic. You know, it's when we're talking about how do I build a relationship and maintain a relationship, good enough relationship with my child that they can come to me, but then also that I can trust that they're gonna make the right decisions, and that is really hard because that is our instinct is like protective and do what we can, and we do need that to happen. So like when you're saying if it's like swearing, maybe we can, but other than that, like the kids are great. Like
they're fine.
There's like a gradient here of like bad influences. And
right. You doing drugs, or are you like saying bad words? Are you watching porn, or are you playing too many video games? Like what is the
Yeah. So I think like you going back to like what are my values? What are our values as a family?
Yeah.
And that is what it's kind of like how you said, like you surround yourself with the kind of people that you want to be around, and I think we do that with our kids too. So if we're continuously, I'll just pause to say, like kids are going to explore all different things, and that does have to happen. So we can't like, and that is like the classic like parent-teen dynamic is a parent that's like, trust me, you don't want to do this. I know exactly what's going to happen, and a teen's like, absolutely not. You're old. I'm going to figure this out on my own. And they have to do that. Obviously, we want some limits in there. And it's not like, fine, go have a free-for-all.
Yeah.
But I think with those, there is like a balance here of curfews and like what are our values as a family that we're going to have that our kids can be independent and explore things on their own, but it's in a safe way.
Yeah, of course.
And
it's a fine line.
Yeah, it is. And so like when kids are kind of, like we don't like the other friends that peers that they're hanging out with or that they're making, that like I would kind of ask parents to reflect on like why do you not like those other kids? Is it really because they're like exposing them to marijuana in middle school or like all these like things, or is it just they're just different from their kid and life goals like just seems really different. We want our kids to be exposed to all kinds of things and that it really is what is building their character, their resilience, their ability to withstand all these other tough things. So if they don't have the experience of like making a decision of like, I want to do something, they have to have that opportunity to do it. That's why it's like, it is one of these like
I feel like you're going to be
areas.
good at that. I'm not going to be good at that.
Well, I feel like I'm just like trying so hard right now. But like I really just want them, like I don't want them to be afraid to tell me stuff. Like I really want them to grow up, and like yes, I'm fine with them hanging out with kids. Do I want them smoking weed when they're older? Not really. Do I think that they're probably going to try it? Maybe. I don't know. But like you would hope by the time they get to that point that you instill these like values in them that, hey, like this might not, like eventually they'll be like, yeah, I don't really want to hang out with that person. So like when my kids even now are like, yeah, I don't really hang out with that person. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. Like, you're not going to be friends with everybody. Everyone's not going to get along with everybody else. So it is interesting to me, like, how my kids kind of already are, like, gravitating towards like, certain people.
Yeah, of course.
But then I feel like when you do enter middle school, for example, like, you might be going to a different school. So like you may
Yeah.
be exposed to like other things and other kids and other values and things like that, which I do think is important also. But I think also at this age, it's more easy to control. So you can be like, yeah, you're not having a play date. You're not having a sleepover with that person.
Yeah.
But as they get older, it does get more difficult. And I do hear, my husband is a hockey coach. So for the last 5-6 years, I have met families from like wide ranges of children. So like, it's very interesting to me, like even recently, one of these moms was saying like, my son had a girl over when my husband wasn't home, and like, I didn't know that she was there. Like, I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to react. And so it's just things like that.
Yeah,
that I'm like, people tell me it's hard now, but it's a different kind of hard.
No, that's what Yuki always says to me. Little kids, little problems. Bigger kids, bigger problems.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm like tired. I'm overstimulated. Everybody wants to color. Everybody's like making a mess. Everyone's like, I don't want to eat this, but you need to eat this. And it's just like running around, just trying to figure it out. Like I'm
the eating
whatever.
thing too is like a whole nother thing.
But like in the bigger kids, bigger problems. We could be here all day.
Oh, I know.
We have to do part 2 in a couple months.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
No, there is so much, and it's hard to navigate because each situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that one, like the alternative is I don't know how the age of the boy that
but almost high school or high school.
Yeah, right. So the alternative is if you want someone over, you need to tell us,
100%.
and then we'll set up some limits around it.
For sure. Like I had to. Back in the day, there was not even like, I'm pretty sure people had cell phones, obviously I'm not that old, but like the stipulation was if I wanted to go to someone's house, my dad would literally have to call the parent.
Yeah, right, to talk to the parent.
Yeah, and be like, are you home? Yeah. And it was a house phone. So like they could only pick up if they were at their house. I was going nowhere. So like I am like that parent that wants to give my kids a little more because I wasn't able to do anything, but I turned out, I'm one in a million where like I've never smoked a drug. I've never, like my parents instilled that.
And you still love your parents.
Yeah, I still love my parents. I could not charge my phone in my room until I was 18. On my 18th birthday is when my phone was in my room. And I had Snake on my phone. I didn't have TikTok or, like I didn't have anything. Like, so like my parents, like, and Xavier grew up very similar. Yeah. Like very strict, but Xavier did a lot boundaries. More. Yeah, and that's
like kids need limits.
100%, and I think
or they eat ice cream every day.
Yeah.
That's fine. See, like I don't care about that. Like I don't care. That doesn't bother me.
I feel like we should talk with her about food some other time because people have Yeah, it's like a whole.
Do you do that as well? Like food? Are you like specializing
with
that?
anxiety?
Like, yeah, well, like food and like the red dye, all that stuff is like attributed to behavior and sugar and this and that. Like,
but we should, I mean, that is like a long.
It is.
Topic.
In short, we have some research to support. Like, obviously, diet can affect our daytime behavior.
Okay. But
not
I think
enough as like a treatment though to okay, sugar. Like, if we're gonna increase sugar, cake, candies, and all that stuff, we can probably expect to see more rambunctious behavior. Kids with ADHD, you might want to we of course, just any kids, you want to have like a healthy, balanced diet. And so you might want to watch things like a little bit more of like how much like processed sugar and how much protein are they getting, and but not enough to make this like blanket statement of like everyone should be doing this the same way we have like other evidence-based treatments.
Yeah, like so food for me is not here nor there. Like Xavier's like, these kids cannot be eating just this stuff all day.
That's a whole topic.
Like I grew up eating all that stuff, and I was eating McDonald's and Burger King on the go because my brother had a baseball game every day, and I just that, I don't know, like where Xavier was eating a home cooked meal 5 days a week, like very different, but I don't know, like food for me is just like, I notice when my kids are when Zeke is hungry, the behavior is like terrible.
Oh,
like hidden hunger.
But that's like
this whole hidden
most
hunger
people.
Thing. Like the hidden hunger is like a real thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Hangry.
Yeah.
No,
for sure it's real.
It's so real. And Zeke eats lunch at 10:30 at school. So he gets home and he's ravenous.
And they're
angry.
That's another one. Like that's a normal feeling. Like you are hangry.
For sure.
Really adding these words.
Right. Can you say that
vocabulary?
To them?
Hangry.
Yeah, I mean,
because I do. I'm like, you're very hangry.
Yeah.
You need to eat something.
I think Zeke would find that funny. I don't think I've said that to him.
I said it to Bianca the other day, and you could just tell. It was like a downward spiral, and I was like,
but I
gotta
get
food.
Yeah.
But I get angry.
But say it's a time that like you can't, like you're at the store, we have to finish what we came here for.
For sure.
That's usually when we're quick to be like, you're hangry, I get it, but like
Gotta
we
go.
can't. It doesn't matter. Like just enough. And that's where we want to be a little more validating. Like that is the worst feeling. I get it.
I get it. Yeah.
We're in the middle of the store. Oh my gosh,
all this food around
30 minutes till we get home.
Yeah.
You don't have to like lean into it so much that they're just like hysterical because we've really empathized so much, but validate it so that they're heard.
Yeah.
And then
so that's a common...
I'm so confident like that you'll be able to survive this feeling.
30 minutes,
like it feels like you're gonna die because you're so hungry.
Yeah. So meanwhile, I just said, hurry up, we gotta get food. Like fix the
like,
problem right away.
That is like that's how you can relate of like
I
have this feeling and I need to problem solve it right away.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess that's the common thing here. It's just like validating, giving them the confidence to realize that it's either like I understand how you feel and that's okay to feel that way and it's normal to feel this way. And getting down to a level, I think I could definitely do better on that. I mean, again, all my kids are different. Like Zuri and Xander could care less about anything. Like, they just...
Right, really doesn't apply to those like low anxiety.
Yeah, the last question I guess I'll ask you, and then we'll wrap this up, is we kind of talked a little bit about phones and teenagers with phones and how that can does that attribute to anxiety? Do you see like in your clients phones and like social media really like the access that some of these kids have when they don't have that boundary? Because through this conversation I've realized like boundaries are important. But do you see that in your patients like because of phone use and social media? Do you see that?
For sure. So there's an obviously increase of like what they have access to and social media. And so if you think of like the stuff that we were exposed to, because like I used like played a lot of makeup and I'm like, oh, I need to look like Jennifer Aniston. Like we had like similar things, it's just body image, like all these things that that's like one area that they get comparison on social media. They have like this more direct access to it and it's so different than but it's still there. Like so in that sense it's the same where like we experienced issues from it just wasn't social media. Right. On our phones. Yeah. So but it's definitely there, but the way to like we can still learn to be resilient through that. Like we can still normalize, that person looks a certain way and I want to look like that and it's okay to feel like that. So
as long as it doesn't, like what you say, alter your daily, like it's not debilitating to you. Like
like, that's where it does
like,
become more disordered.
You're sticking your finger down, like all those things.
Or like you don't want to go to school because the kids are saying mean things to me about my picture that I posted.
Yeah.
Like
which
just
maybe,
things like that.
Maybe they are, and so like there's different
How do we
ways
like
that we
deal
want to
with
address that. But it's not to say that it's like this easy thing. Because I think they have it a lot, just from all angles, social media, everything is like...
And access to the phone, like, do you think parents should be, like, again, my phone was so basic and I could not charge my phone, like, limiting hours on the phone, like, having access to that?
Yeah, I think still, like, so there are, like, screen time recommendations still, but what happens a lot is I work with a lot of parents that have these, like, monitoring apps that will, like, send them a text or something if they, like, use a certain word.
Oh.
And
I've seen that.
It can be invasive. So,
like
appropriate
privacy
for a certain age.
Got it.
You know, like tweens, younger and everything. Sure. Just to make sure they're not, like, talking to people that they shouldn't or just, like, in these situations. But then in high school, that's where it becomes this like invasion of privacy, I think, where it's the same thing. It's protection. If I can catch this before it happens, then I'm going to prevent them from getting into a situation.
I would definitely do that.
That's like instinct.
It's
like I need to prevent it. But it's the same thing of like going up to them and saying like, don't do this because this is going to happen. And they're going to be like, no, that's not.
Right. Well, you don't know, Mom.
It really pushes, like it pushes them away by they'll dig their heels in because it feels like I'm not heard. So if it's like, I want my own privacy, I want to be able to talk to boys or whatever, then when you have a parent that's like, no, I'm going to monitor everything that you're saying, it's just kids, not until way later can they see like, oh, there was a reason my parent was doing that.
Of course.
And at the time, it just isn't. It's not good for that like trust in that relationship. So there is this like, limits. Like we need to set healthy limits and boundaries with kids.
Yep.
And you could think of like what is in line with my family values.
100. And
Not
I love that.
my anxiety.
I love that.
I just thought like about like my daughter going to the movies as like a preteen, and me following them to watch them.
Oh yeah, right.
But my parents used to do that.
But they wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know.
But what if they find out and then it's like you're
wow.
invading my privacy, like my time that you don't trust me.
No,
Yeah.
and I would say it's not about trust or like it's
Then what's it about?
You know what I mean? Again, the word that she's not gonna like. I just want to protect you and make sure that you're okay. I don't know.
Right. You may admit to that. Like you're right. I totally
Invading
like
your
I
privacy.
was anxious and like I was feeling so nervous and that's why I did something. But I totally get what you're saying, and I need to get my anxiety.
I think that's super important too.
Like you're communicating that.
Yeah, like I think that's really, I've learned this, and I don't know why. I don't know. I just think that it's so important to apologize to your children.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
And like I don't know if I think my mom. I remember my mom apologizing for like lashing out and things like that because those are really big moments. But I also just feel like some parents they don't. They just are very passive. Like it'll move on. Like kind of back to the whole like argument conversation thing with your partner. Yeah. Like if they don't see like the reconciliation. Right. It's just like an open end, like, oh, we swept it under the rug. We have to make sure that we follow up and like circle back and be like, hey, by the like, me and daddy are okay. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Especially
once they get a little older.
Like, or mommy was just really upset in that moment or super hungry.
Yeah, hungry.
Right. Yeah. And like I lashed out for no reason or I felt very overstimulated. But for kids our age, I feel like even using those words are a little bit too big of words. For sure. So we really need to like make sure that it's more on their level. For sure. Right.
Like a big, I use that word a lot. It's like it's a big emotion. Like I'm having this like really big feeling, and it made me do this XYZ. But now that I think about it, that was really just acting out of that emotion. And
it's like a fine line between the phrase that I absolutely hate because I am not necessarily a gentle parent, but like I'm not like
you hate that.
So yeah, I'm not a gentle. Like I don't think.
See, I try to be a gentle parent.
No, because I don't want to be. I'm not going to be gentle when you're 16, taking over my life. And I remind my kids. This is probably maybe wrong or not, but I remind my kids probably a couple times a week who the boss is here, and it's me.
Yeah, you want it's not gentle or
bossy behavior.
Yeah, bossy. You want that middle, and that's what it is. Like a healthy boundary for kids that like we're overly permissive. They're gonna get into things that they shouldn't because those boundaries are not there. Right. Those limits established. Are not there. Yeah. And the other way around, like when you're forcing kids into it, are not going to want to do that either. Yeah. So it's like middle ground.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we could talk all day.
I know.
Sure. And time flew by.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have you back and we can talk about more things. This is a random question, but do you have any like things that you recommend parents like read or like books or like videos or anything that you could give your child to read or themselves?
Yeah, good question. So for the topic of anxiety, child anxiety, there's a book by Ellie Lebowitz. I'll have to give you the name. It's called Breaking Free from Child Anxiety and OCD. It's like a blue cover on Amazon. It's like a really...
We'll link it in the YouTube video.
Yeah. It's a great book. It's like easy read for parents. The way that he words everything. It's like a really great book. I recommend that book to every parent with a child with an anxiety disorder, but just in general, dealing with some of the stuff. That's a really great book.
Okay.
Yeah. And any resources, I think, from him, Dr. Ellie Lebowitz.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where can parents find you? We do live in the Tampa Bay area, but you said that you take calls, right, virtually. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so I see clients in Florida, but I also have a license that's throughout the country. So it's like in 40 other states that I can see people in now, but mostly Florida. And my office is in Tampa. And on Instagram, it's like at Tampa Psychology. I think it is.
Tampa Psychology?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
And you have a website as well?
Yeah.
Do people book through your website?
Yeah, so there's like a contact form they can fill out, and I respond back by email.
And what's your website?
drkristinedwards.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the links for all that stuff.
Perfect. So you're mostly on Instagram? TikTok or
Yeah, no TikTok. Gosh, I'm like trying to
no?
get
She
into
can't
that.
either. It's fine.
It's our age group. She's
It's
like,
so
no, she's
hard.
cooler than
I
us.
don't know what I'm supposed to do.
No, are you kidding me? She is
She
the
would
most
be
creative. No,
amazing
she's the
on
most
TikTok.
creative person. She has a really cute. Do you do like Therapy Fridays?
Yeah, I know. So that was my like in the
Instagram.
middle ground on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, no, but this chick, I'll tell you after, but she's the most creative. Like, she was selling lesson plans like 10 years ago, making so much
that's
money.
amazing.
Like, this girl is like the most creative. She could do TikTok in a second. She
Should.
helped us.
It's just time
So
consuming.
Xavier, when he started Extraordinary Athletes, Xavier did like this camp, and she helped me make all the graphics for it.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I remember that.
The countdown, remember?
Yes.
And the countdown of the player like things. She's
So
been with us.
funny.
She's like OG. Like, this is like, she's the most creative
Oh
person.
my
I know.
gosh, I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
the time
thank
we were
you.
saying, I'm like, I'm the psychologist for
Literally,
extraordinary athletes.
yes, which we're gonna need eventually.
Do you do like, never mind. All right. It was so great having you on.
Thank you so
So
much. All
good.
right, catch us next week, guys.
So
Thank
much.
you.
Our